Blog Talk Radio.
Well, I guess we'll cut that intro a little bit. Good evening, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and I'm not sure what happened to the audio here, but it appeared to want to fast forward. I said I was going to try and speed things up here tonight, but not quite that fast. Anyways, welcome to the show. It's Thursday evening, of course, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. Got a great show for you tonight. Going to be starting things off here in just a moment. Coach's Corner, of course. I've got my panel all ready to go. And then a little bit later on, I'm going to be joined by Mike Maher. He's the Director of Education of the Evans Scholars Foundation up in the Chicago area. He's with the Western Golf Association, and we're going to talk to him a little bit on the second half of the show. And but as I said, first we're going to start off with Coach's Corner. Just to remind everybody, of course, we are live every Thursday evenings from 6 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Best way to find us, go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, and that will take you to the show's link. And, of course, we are live, as I said, Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. And if you want to speak to the guests or call in anytime during the live broadcast, you're welcome to do so by calling area code 646-716-4667. We'd love to hear from you. Or you can email questions or comments to me personally at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And if you're interested in coming on the show, if you're a golf professional, whether you're a player, teacher, coach, or somebody, maybe an entrepreneur that has something that you'd like to share with my audience, I'd love to have you. Again, you can reach out to me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. Also, update every week on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog. You can get the link there as well. And also, you can follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. And CEO, of course, is capital letters. And thank you very much, as always, for all the recent followers on my Twitter account. As I mentioned, I got a great show for you tonight. Coach's Corner here. I got three great professionals, John Hughes, Alison Curdt, and Brandon Stooksbury, who've all been on the show before. And I'm going to give you just a sort of a quick intro of all three of them, and then we'll get right into the discussion. John, as I mentioned, a good friend of mine. He's been on the show many, many times. He's a PGA Master Professional, as well as the Vice President of North Florida PGA Section, and he's the recipient of the 2013 PGA of America Horton Smith Award, as well as a top 30 instructor for Golf Tips magazine, one of the good ones out there, of course. Also, Alison Curdt, she's joining me here as well. She's been on many times, not only as a panelist, but also as a guest. And she's also a PGA Master Professional in Instruction, and as well as a LPGA Class A member, and one of 11 women to achieve the highest PGA credential earned by an instructor. She's had over 27 years of competition background and has recently played in 3 LPGA Tour majors. She earned the 2015 LPGA Teacher and Club Professional National Teacher of the Year honor, as well as the LPGA Teacher and Club Professional Western Section Teacher of the Year award in 2012 and 2015. She's set to contribute not only, again, to Golf Tips magazine, but she'll be featured a number of times in segments on the Golf Channel this year as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. She's currently the Director of Instruction at the Wood Ranch Golf Club and is the Assistant Women's Golf Coach at California State University in Northridge. And she also currently practices as a marriage and family therapist, registered intern, while she's on her way to completing her doctorate degree in clinical psychology, physiology, with an emphasis in sports psychology. So she's well-rounded in all aspects of not only golf, but in sports psychology and so forth. Finally, on the panel, Brandon Stooksbury. He's the Director of Instruction at the prestigious Idle Hour Club in Macon, Georgia. He's ranked in Golf Digest Best in State Instructor rankings for Georgia and honored as the 2015 Central Georgia PGA Teacher of the Year. Brandon specializes in competitive player development and enjoys teaching players of all levels, from beginner right up to the PGA Tour players. Alison and gentlemen, welcome to Coach's Corner.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Ted, I'll tell you again, what, next time you ask me to be on the show, I don't know about these two guests because my ego is very wounded right now after hearing their bios compared to mine. So, we're going to have to talk about this in the future. You got a couple of pretty good people on with me here.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly, and I tell you, my ego's been bruised many times over the last several years having a lot of you guys on here, so I appreciate it very much. As I said, I appreciate you guys giving your time. I know it's not always easy coming from the lesson tee right out onto the show, so thank you very much. All right, let's get started right into the discussion tonight. One of the things I want to talk about is the golf swing in general. I want to necessarily get into the mechanics and things like that, but I thought a good way to start, and John, I'm going to let you start, and then we're going to go to Alison and then Brandon, and then we'll flip the switch and start with one of the others first. I want to talk about some of the common misunderstandings or misconceptions, if you will, about the golf swing in general, from the public's perspective. What are some things about the golf swing that maybe the general public tends to misunderstand or just doesn't get in their pursuit of improving their golf game? So, John, I'm going to start with you. Based on your experience, what are some of the misunderstandings that the average folks out there have about the golf swing?
Well, the first thing I'd say is they get so wrapped up in positions and technical things, getting the club back, that they forget the club's got to get through. And I see a whole lot of people just not finishing swings fully, worried about all these positions. Not that they're not important, but most people are probably best just to think about target. How do I get the club through the ball, and how do I square the face? And when you simplify it as that, most people, I'd tell you, most people I teach are going to at least hit it a little further and a little straighter. And they get the other misconception, it's really not a misconception, I think Alison will agree with this, is people get so wrapped up in thinking about these smaller items, such as where is my club at this particular point in my swing, they forget about what the game's about, and that's to go play it. And I find myself quite often with people who are paralyzed by too much analysis, reminding them it's a game that you play, not necessarily a game that you pinpoint. It's from a technical standpoint of view. With all due respect to the better players, which I've taught quite a few, most golfers, they do have the athleticism to do that, but not necessarily the time commitment to fulfill it. And
right.
They're probably better off just sticking to some basics and really thinking about how are they playing? Am I playing smarter with the skills I currently have? And then once they have the time to devote to the mechanics, to the detailed mechanics that make the world-class players world-class players, when you have the time to commit to it, that's probably the better option.
Right. Alison, what about that? Great points, John. Thank you. Alison, what about that? John referred to you, obviously, because he knows that you play competitively as well as teach. Do a lot of your students get kind of hung up or caught up in position, where the golf club is at any given time, and maybe focus a little bit too much on that instead of just sort of having a free-flowing swing? What are some of the misunderstandings or misconceptions, if you will, that you've experienced, either yourself or even with some of your students?
For most of my students, they tend to everyone has their own unique piece of their swing that they're caught up on. And when they're looking at maybe video analysis, they may be losing sight of the entire picture of what we're looking at and just really focusing on some little nuance that tends to trigger them. So most students, in my opinion, tend to look at positions, and then they have sort of this model in their head that they compare themselves to, whether they've seen that model on TV or in magazines or instructional tips. And so some of the common things that I see that really, really trigger me is keeping your head down. That's probably the most common is, I must not have kept my head down. And I really try to coach my students to say we don't keep our head down. I try to change that and reframe it to staying in posture and also staying connected to the ball, whether that connection is through their eyes, through their chest, or through their posture. So keeping your head down, we need to change our language in terms of all the amateurs across the world that we don't need to keep our head down. And there's really great examples for professional players on tour who literally do not keep their head down and win bunches of money on tour. And one of those players is Annika Sorenstam. She didn't really keep her head down. She looked up early in terms of where her eyes were in position to the ball, but she stayed in posture very, very nicely, so she was able to make great contact. The second most common in my work is keeping the left arm straight for a right-handed player. And they see all of these really athletic, fantastic athletes on TV with their left arm straight for the majority of players, and they feel like they need to emulate that too. And so when I really kind of explore with them, well, what's the purpose for you of keeping your left arm straight? And then show them a bunch of examples of either tour professionals or other players who don't keep it straight, it starts to break down some of those beliefs about why it needs to be this way. So I agree with the above statements in terms of a lot of players look at positions and think that if they don't get into that position, then they're not going to make solid contact with the golf ball, which I don't agree with. We can be in a lot of different positions, take a look at Jim Furyk, and still go out and break some records on the golf course.
Yeah, exactly. Some great points, Alison, as well. And you know, I agree wholeheartedly with what both of you said. I think that, you know, people get hung up on too many things. I just want to add one thing about what you were just saying, Alison, about keeping that left arm straight. I think a lot of people misunderstand that. And again, I think some of the terminology that we've used over the years has kind of stuck, and people have taken it literally. I know as well with, you know, keeping the head down, I think people misunderstand what really was meant by that. It was, as you pointed out, was really keeping a connection with the golf ball. And I know a lot of amateurs fall into this by sort of keeping that head down. They get their chin almost into their, into their upper chest to the point where they can't actually make a free-flowing turn in their backswing and or follow through. And it's, you know, they're kind of digging that chin in. Brandon, I want to throw something just slightly different to you, if you don't mind. Still on the same theme in that, but I think one of the other misconceptions that hasn't been mentioned yet is sort of from the power game, if you will. I think a lot of people think golf is a power game. You've got to, you've just got to grip it and rip it. Of course, they all remember John Daly after the 91 PGA Championship that he won. And, he had that come out with that, saying grip it and rip it, and everybody sort of wanted to emulate that. What about from that aspect as well? A lot of misconceptions about the power game. People think that they've got to just murder the ball in order to make some good golf shots.
Well, I think there's a basic misunderstanding about the whole analytical part of the game. And what I mean is, I don't think people understand the analytics that are required to play good golf. And I think that's one example of them. There's no question statistically at the upper levels of the game, and by upper levels of the game, I mean the elite collegiate level, mini tour level, and professional level, there is no question an advantage to hitting the ball farther. Usually that means they get to play less club into a green than somebody that they're playing against. And even if they're coming from the rough, they're more accurate using 2 clubs less than they would be from the fairway with, 2 clubs more. It just doesn't bear out quite the same as you get down into the amateur levels of golf. Now, make no mistake, I'm not saying you can mishit your driver and hit it out of play and hit it in the woods and top it and do all those things and still play great golf. You have to be able to advance the ball forward, and it needs to go farther with a driver than any other club in your golf bag if you want to be able to play decent golf. But you absolutely do not have to be able to hit it 295 yards to shoot 77, right? And that's what I mean about the analytics of the game. I mean, I spend a lot of my day teaching competitive players, either juniors or college players or mini tour players, and they don't understand. The most accurate ball striker on planet Earth, the guy that leads the stat category of greens and regulation on the PGA Tour, still misses 30% of the time. Right. The most accurate man on planet Earth misses 30% of the time. Somebody today was floored when I told them that from 15 feet, the average tour player makes roughly 25%. From 15 feet, 1 in 4. They're 50-50 from 8 feet. And part of that comes from TV, right? They watch it on TV, and it's a highlight reel on the weekend. Sure. And you don't see the other stuff, and sometimes it's easy to lose sight. But I think distance rolls right into that. People have this misconception because they see the highlight reel of somebody on tour hitting it very, very far, and they assume that that's required to be able to play good golf, and it's absolutely not. You can still play some great golf without hitting it 300 yards. If you can keep it in play and advance it forward with your driver, usually that's pretty good to get to most people's goal.
Right. And also, too, what I was also alluding to was just the fact that with the actual golf swing itself, I think a lot of players feel that the harder they swing at it is going to give them that extra distance, and we know that that's not true. There's, if it's not in proper sequence, it's going to create a myriad of problems. So great points by all three of you. Thank you for that. And I think that, I think that there's many other misunderstandings and misconceptions, if you will, I'm sure, about the golf swing that people have. But I just wanted to talk about a few of them, because I think I still see posts and things on blogs all the time where people are asking sort of the similar questions and inquiring about some of the things that you guys just discussed. And I just thought it was worth mentioning tonight. Alison, we're going to jump to you here first. And what I would like for each of you to do, and as I said, Alison, we'll go with you first, but I want you to talk about, and please, give an example or two if you want, what a player can learn from his or her failures on the golf course. Maybe give some examples of students that you've been working with on course, maybe some situations that didn't go the way that they thought. What were you able to help them, or what were they able to learn from those mistakes that have helped at a later point?
That's a really good question, because I think through the relationship that is built with the coach and the student, you have a lot of dialogue and check in with your student on every lesson to say, okay, what are we focusing on, and where are we going to go with learning from our previous experiences. And so I like to hear what my student has been doing since I've last seen them, in terms of, talk to me about your round. What are things that you liked? What are things that you didn't like? And so as much as I want to emphasize the positive pieces, because I think sometimes we do get too focused on what went wrong and what are the flaws, I want to focus on the positive pieces first, but then what are some of the things that we can improve on and work on. And so sometimes it just comes from really good questioning from the coach to find out what those things are. And a lot of times students might distort what they think went wrong. So, for example, I have this really great story of a student that I've been working with since November. And he was going to leave the game of golf. He was so frustrated that he was going to give up the game of golf. And this was something that he wanted to enjoy in retired life. And so I felt like, gosh, he's really reaching out to me, and I've got to keep this guy in the game. And part of his concern was that his driver wasn't going the way he wanted it to, therefore it took away from enjoyment from the game. And so fast forward to July of this year, so it's been about 9 months that we've been working together, and he's staying in the game. He's brought his handicap from a 17 down to a 10, and his relationship with his driver has changed where it's not so toxic. And he learned from adversity on the golf course that it wasn't his driver, that there were some other elements of his game, including his mental game, that were limiting his enjoyment of just being on the golf course and having fun. And so I think we really do learn a tremendous amount, if we're open to look at it, what happens on the golf course for us. And it may not be what we think it is. So for this particular student, he thought that it was all his driver. And if the driver would just get fixed, then life would be great. Well, we learned that there were some other pieces, that there was more hitting greens in regulation that really took his scoring average down, that making more up and downs really took his scoring average down. And so once the pressure was relieved from the driver, surprisingly enough, the driver started to respond and perform much better. And we didn't even have to do a lot of coaching on that piece. So I would encourage all students to really do sort of like a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of their own personal golf game, and then have a really deep conversation with your coach. Hey, let's look at some of these pieces and how can I improve on them that fit in line with your goals.
Well said, and a great example. What a lot of people don't realize is the driver. The only function really for the driver is to show up in the golf course and be there in your golf bag, and it's really what you do with it is going to dictate how it's going to respond in the golf course. And that's a great point, Alison, because a lot of people get and Brandon was sort of alluding to that as well a little bit, getting caught up with their driver and so forth. And I think a lot of people, tend to do that. When the driver's not working well, they forget about all the rest of the game. They just, don't really pay attention. And you were able to very eloquently give an example here of digging a little deeper. You were able to uncover and help that individual uncover some other issues within their golf game. And once those issues were addressed and improvement was made, suddenly the initial concern wasn't really as big of a concern anymore. And kudos to you for keeping this gentleman playing golf actively again and not giving it up. And Brandon, that goes to really a testament to a great coach and great teaching professional that Alison is we've got a lot of players out there that are frustrated, as she alluded to in the beginning, and we've got to figure out something to do. So let's hear an example that you maybe have of where some of your students, and I know we hate to use the term failure, but I think we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. So what are some examples, maybe an example that you have that you could share with the listeners tonight?
Well, I feel like I can make a pretty compelling argument that you can't have success without failure.
Right.
Because failure is necessary to know what success is. And let me give you a great example. I think as adults, oftentimes we forget how to learn. And I'm not talking about how to learn a new language or how to learn a math problem. That's not what I mean. I mean a motor skill. I'm in the backyard the other day, and I'm throwing a little ball with my 3.5-year-old little girl, right? And I get maybe 5 or 10 feet away from her, and I say, "Okay, honey, throw me the ball." And she threw the ball, and it went about 1.5 feet, right? Now, by most of our players' standards, if you were trying to hit a wedge shot or a chip shot to the hole and it went 2 feet, right, they would call that a mistake. And my question is, would you call that a mistake for my little 3.5-year-old girl? Well, the answer to that is, of course not, right? It's not a mistake. She gave me her best attempt at the effort required to throw the ball to me. So I picked up the ball and I handed it to her again. And I pointed at the logo on my shirt. And I said, "No, honey, throw it right here at this logo." And you could look into her eyes at 3.5 years old and you could see her wheels turning.
Right.
And her little brain was saying to her, "You know what? I tried to do that the last time, and I did what I thought was necessary, and it didn't work. So I'm now going to try it again." And she threw it about 10 feet over my head.
Wow.
About 10 minutes later, all I kept doing was handing her the ball back and saying, "Here, throw it right here at my chest, right here at this little funny logo on my chest." And in about 10 minutes, she had it. But she didn't know what success was, meaning the required effort to accomplish the task, without first messing it up a couple of times and learning that that's not what's required, right? That's how you learn. That's how every person on earth learned to walk. It's how we learned to stand on our 2 feet. We would get up and then we would fall over to the right. And then we'd get up the next time, and as soon as we'd feel ourselves falling to the right, we'd know that didn't work, so we'd lean left, and then we'd fall left. And after 2 or 3 months of trying that, we finally learned how to walk. But as adults, we haven't had to do any of that stuff in many, many years. I mean, I remember 7 or 8 years ago, my wife buying me an acoustic guitar. And I didn't know how to play guitar. I didn't know the first thing about it. That was one of the most incredible experiences to me in learning what it was like to learn a motor skill again and feeling the fear of failure, the fear of playing in front of that coach, knowing that I couldn't get my fingers to the cord the right way and it was going to make a weird buzzing noise. Well, of course it is. I'm a novice. I'm brand new. But if I don't try it, then I don't know what it's like to fail. And if I don't know what it's like to fail, I don't know what succeeding is. And so I admire Alison in what she says to focus on the positive, and that gets a lot into the coaching and how we have to make sure people stay positive, and I am totally on board with that. But I do not believe we can succeed without first knowing what is not succeeding. And that's where I think failure comes into play. It's an important part of what we do. It is 100% unavoidable. Everyone will fail at something, sometime, someplace, somehow. And so if we can just learn to embrace it as a part of the learning process instead of a negative experience, then I think we're one step closer.
Well said.
If I could add on to that for a second, I think that if we just reframe how we look at the word fail and look at it more in terms of a first attempt in learning, literally FAIL, it tends to be a little bit less negative, because really that's what we term failure is. It's just a really first attempt in learning.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Right. I couldn't agree with more. That's brilliant. I got to write that down. First attempt in learning. I like that.
Yeah, I like that as well. John, I know you've got an example as well that you would like to share, and we're all ears.
It's hard to beat those two stories. The more practical of stories I could probably give you is just today had two different students text me. I had an office day today, and one played a regional mid-am and quote-unquote failed miserably in his eyes, but the text was so positive that he didn't realize he could putt so well. It was the first time he had gotten below 25 putts in over a year. And throughout our time together, I kept emphasizing to him how good of a putter he was. He's so hung up on ball striking. Well, the ball striking got the better of him today, but his texts were so positive in what he learned and what he got out of that. He's ready to go on to the next tournament, which is good. It's a positive sign. His ball striking, for him, that's more of a ego thing, and we deal with that on a regular basis. But just the humility of realizing that he's got something he can be confident in now goes much further than just the golf course. It gets into his gym routine and his nutrition routine. He was just very vibrant with it. And then from a completely different perspective, but yet still competitive, recently had someone try out for a high school team. A very competitive young man, transferred from another sport, if you want to use that term. And the expectation level was just incredible. And the dealing with failure is extremely hard for him because of that expectation level. It's his success at another sport, which goes back to what Brandon and Alison were talking about, that it's okay not to do what you think you're capable of doing, because you do have to learn. The analogy I use, similar to Brendan's, is your equilibrium is just not ready to balance it all. That is how you learn to walk. The equilibrium takes a little while to balance it all out, and you've got to retrain that, and it takes a while. The patience level for this young man was incredible leading up to tryouts, and it was through repetition, remembering how to learn, but not necessarily the failures, because he really didn't have a whole lot. He's only been playing golf 3 months. He ends up making the golf team. It was a testament to his work ethic, but more importantly, it was a testament to, I just want to go learn to play, and that's what we emphasized. As many times as he didn't hit good shots, the emphasis of realizing he was still in play, the ball was still there for the next shot, and the target was still in front of him. That's huge. That's absolutely huge, and it was built off of this unrealistic expectation of, I got to hit it like Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. I mean, those are his two idols. And if he can't hit it that far, he deems it a failure. Where as soon as he gets out on the golf course and it's in play and he realizes, hey, I can make this, I can actually do this, it's a totally different mindset, which led to a positive result for him. Now that he's on the team, let's try to fix some things, but it always goes back to, what did you do on the golf course? What are we going to take from the golf course? And can you take your current skills and your current positive attitude out there with the skills you have and make some success stories? Because that's what breeds the confidence, is the success.
Right, exactly. Some great examples, everyone. That was fantastic. You know, it's interesting when you listen to players, and I'm sure we've all heard some examples of this, but you know, a player coming off the golf course and they've shot a pretty decent score. They've played overall very well, but for some reason, and I don't know what it is, and again, I think it's an ego thing, but while I wasn't hitting my driver that great, they don't focus on, as you pointed out, Alison, they don't focus on the positive things they did in the round. That right away they're zeroing in on the negative things. My driver wasn't working, my putter wasn't working. Instead of celebrating, some of the more positive things and that doesn't mean that you forget or that you negate some of the issues. Those are things that can be worked on later on. But if you shoot an overall good round just because you hit 2 or 3 bad drives, I mean, how many professionals have we seen that won tournaments, maybe hitting a few bad drives, but again, as you point out, John, they were in play throughout their round and ended up being successful overall. You don't see them in their interview and saying, well, I won the tournament, but my driver sucked or stunk or whatever. So it's kind of interesting sometimes when you hear some of the amateurs talk about their golf game. All right, I want to fast forward just a little bit here and just keeping timing going here. And Brandon, we're going to start with you this time. For some, depending on where you are in the country, obviously in the northern states, we're creeping very closely. It's already almost the middle of August to sort of that mid-season for some of the golfers. They don't have the advantages of say, John and I and Brandon, of course, you in Georgia, and John down in Florida, and myself, and, of course, Alison out in California. So they're in a little bit shorter season. Is this a good time for an assessment of your game? Obviously you want to sort of be assessing along the way, but is this a good opportunity for you to really do a deeper assessment of what's been happening so far in the first part of the season? And if so, what can we, how can we use that information to wrap up for the second half of the season? Brandon, I'll let you go first, and then we'll go to Alison or John and then Alison.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you look at the elite levels of sport and coaching and athletics, everybody periodizes their training and their coaching. And what I mean by that is you have an in season and you have an out of season. Perhaps there are multiple seasons and multiple out of seasons in a year, but you always change what you work on and how you work on it depending on whether you're in season or out of season. I do it with my college players. I do it with my professional players. And, we're working on things like technique changes or making motion pattern adjustments out of season where there really isn't any competition pressure. And then somewhere shortly before we start to get into competition season, we start to transition into that competition training mode where we're not really making any technique changes at all. We're more training to try to transfer the new skills into a golf course environment. And so I think if you're working with a coach, I would hope the coach would be doing those things. And to answer your question, yes, right. If your season's getting ready to wrap up in the middle to the end of September, then perhaps it's time you start to assess what statistically, how does my golf game look, or how did it perform over the course of this season? And then based on that analysis or assessment, as you called it, then what do I need to spend my time in the off season working on so that I can come into the next in season with that part improved? Sometimes that's harder for an amateur to do if you're not working with a coach, because part of what a coach will do will help you assess and help you decide what to focus on and what maybe not to focus on. So it's a little harder. But I think if you're coming to the end of the season, an assessment's always a good idea because it gives you data and information to know what to try to focus on during the off season. I mean, for those of us coaches, we don't have off seasons, right? Off season just means the training changes. It doesn't mean we put the golf clubs away. I think it depends on how much golf you play and how much coaching you're involved with. But I think assessments at the end of the season are always a great idea.
Perfect. John, what about yourself? Good time for, again, you and I are in some warmer climates as Brandon is. We want to certainly have our students be assessing along the way, but for those that maybe don't have the advantage of working with a full-time coach or something like that, what can the amateurs do to sort of assess their game? What should they be looking at this point of the season? And I'm going to throw sort of an additional question in here. And again, I'm referring obviously, as Brandon pointed out, obviously there's different in-seasons and out-seasons, but is it too late for some of the folks up north, let's say as an example again, Is it too late in the season for them to make major swing changes? Let's say they've discovered they've got some issues. Is it too late for them to make a major swing change at this point as well? Let's tackle both of those if we can.
Let's tackle the latter first. It's going to depend on the person and what their commitment level to their game is as to whether they can or not. And commitment level has a lot to do with time and time management. It takes a while to make a swing change. The professionals I've worked with, I'm sure Brendan will agree with this, it's a good 2, 3, 4 week process of being able to create the change, repeat the change, merge it into a playable state, and then test it under real-time conditions. So it's something that can be done, but it does take a commitment of time and some dedication. It's not for the faint of heart. It's for somebody who's got some type of goal in mind. Maybe it's the end of the season club championship, or maybe there's a amateur tournament in that particular state that's a big tournament that you're really prepping for. Hopefully you've been prepping before now, but to make that major change, it's going to take quite a bit of time and dedication, and you can't let the frustration get to you. From the amateur standpoint of view, I think if everybody took a page out of all sports playbooks, and what I mean by this is we're now deeper into the baseball season. When it gets deeper into the football season or deeper into the basketball season, coaches and players, they're looking at film, they're looking at data and stats, they're looking at a whole lot of things, and they're probably pinpointing one point of improvement that can be made that can get them to that next plateau, get them in the playoffs, get them to the championship game, whatever the case may be. I think if the amateur were to sit down with or without a coach and just take an inventory of, that's what I call it, as an inventory of or assessment of what they're currently doing, and not necessarily pick out the biggest weak link, that you may not have time to do that. That may go back to that major swing change we were just talking about. But if you picked out one area that you feel like, you know what, I do have some confidence in this, I do know I can do better at this, and because you're passionate about it and because you truly feel like, you know what, there's some potential here based on my current commitment level, based on my other priorities and time constraints, pick out that one thing to focus on, just like Brendan was, that Alison was talking about with the driver. She didn't really emphasize the driver as the weak link. It was a lot of other things, probably one or two big things that built the confidence to turn that driver on, and the person never knew it. I think you can take that same type of strategy to the middle to end of season and get some things done. I see that. I've seen that quite a bit over the years managing and operating golf schools, where people will come in the fall and early winter because they're trying to get a jump on the following spring, but you'll get that late summer person who's got that tournament. And when we focus on just one aspect, not necessarily the weakest one, but something right there in the middle that can carry the rest of it through the season, 95% of the time that person's going to see some improvement by the time they stow the clubs away. Right.
Well said. Alison, your thoughts on that as well, coming mid or near end season assessments? Obviously, it's a good idea. What do you try to do with your students? And also, again, does it depend on the level of commitment for major swing change? And how do you handle a situation like that where maybe a student comes out, needs a major swing change, but maybe doesn't have the time or resources to make that kind of a full-time commitment? How do you tackle that scenario?
So it's a little different for me out here in Los Angeles because we really don't have any seasons, but I completely understand the concept because I grew up in Missouri.
Quit bragging,
they're
okay?
seasonal. So golf is 24/7 all year round. There is no seasonal change. And really that's maybe to a little bit of a fault because some of the kids out here don't ever get a break from their season. Right. I mean, I personally grew up in a state where every 3 months you were changing sport because the weather changed. And so when it was snow time, you were indoors playing sports. So in terms of how it kind of works out here for my students is instead of looking at it seasonally, I have them set up quantifiable goals in terms of like months. So whether it's a 3-month, 6-month, 12-month goal. So we're coming into mid-season now if we're looking at a calendar year, and I've already had the conversation with almost all of my continuous students. Where are we at now? So we've come through half of the year. We set up some yearly goals. How close are we to getting those goals if those goals are going to end in, let's say, December? And to reevaluate either our teaching plan, our play schedule, the training, what do we need to adjust in order to still kind of accomplish those goals? So instead of looking at it as in season and out of season, I tend to have my students set up more goals in terms of months and then checking in with them periodically. Are we doing the right things to get there? And so if one of those goals happens to incorporate a major swing change, and I'll use that word, but I don't like to use that phrase major swing change because I think that's already going into the relationship on a bad note. Like we're making a major overhaul. No, we're just going to change the motor patterns in your golf swing to help you hit it better. I think that takes a lot of pressure off of the student so that they don't see this huge mountain that they have to climb, but they see some different patterns in their motor ability that they need to refine. The level of commitment is so instrumental because if I have a student who is an out-to-in type of swinger for 30 years who now wants to hit a draw, that's probably not going to happen in a 60-minute session once a month with no practice in between. And so we have the discussion in terms of what is this going to look like in order to accomplish it. So, how do you see the swing change looking? What are you willing to put into it in order to get out of it what you want? And then from there I can coach on what that frequency might look like. And if someone is on board and they're willing to commit to that frequency, great, then we're going to be on a good timeline. If they're not willing to commit to that frequency of practice or training, then we need to reevaluate the expectations because it's just not going to happen. And I think a lot of times students overestimate how quickly changes can be made. And I use myself as an example to help sort of normalize what that time period may look like. And I say, I've been playing golf for a long time, been competing for a long, long time, and I personally wanted to gain more club head speed in my golf swing. And it took me about 12 months to go up 6 miles an hour on my driver. And they're like, 6 miles an hour? Well, that's nothing. And I'm like, well, 6 miles an hour, 2 to 3 yards per mile an hour, you do the math. And I'm in my mid-30s, and I get to play golf maybe once a month. So in 12 months period of time, I'd say that's not too bad. And so I think they start to see, wow, this does take some time. And if I'm going to make a big motor pattern change in my body, I have to have a certain level of commitment in order to have that change. And again, a lot of that is just dialogue with the coach, with the instructor, sort of, rationalizing what their expectations are and making them fit with how they might meet their goals.
Yeah, well said, Alison. And thank you for rubbing it in that you have no season in Los Angeles.
Come on out and visit anytime.
I can't complain. John, we do pretty good here in Florida, and actually, Brandon, up in Georgia there where you are, we do pretty good. We may not have it quite as good as Alison does out there, but we're second best anyways. But
I've got it the reverse. It's too hot right now. I'm off season right now.
Well, then you need to make a pilgrimage out to LA and take your game out that way. I want to kind of go to I guess maybe kind of a fun question, if you will. And I think John, we're back to you for first up, and then what I'm going to do is since Alison, since you just finished up, I'll go John, Brandon, and then Alison. I'll let you trail up again here in the end. A lot of golfers, of course, as we get closer into the fall season here, start thinking of maybe a little vacation trip. Maybe they want to go to Arizona and play some golf out there. A lot in this area like to go to Myrtle Beach. Many of my fellow Canadians up there want to come down to Myrtle Beach for maybe a pilgrimage there, or even Florida. So what can some of the average players out there do to prepare for a golf vacation? Now, I'm not talking about major things. They're coming for a week, wherever it is they're going, Arizona, whatever, some of the places I just described. John, what should they do to prepare to make sure that that's a successful vacation, that they're not going to end up, getting too sort of bollocksed up, if you will, with too many changes and that. What can they do to help make that a positive experience for them with respect to their golf game?
You said it to lead off the question. It's a 3-letter word that starts with an F, fun. It is all about fun, and as you prep for any of these trips, and I've worked in Myrtle Beach, I've worked in Hilton Head, I'm in Florida, I've been to all the destinations through the golf schools that I've worked for and represented. The real key there is fun. A lot of times everybody's going to get worked up over the camaraderie and the card playing at the end of the night, or maybe it's that special something you're doing with your spouse. That's what you ought to be focusing on. Golf is just part of that trip. When it comes to, hey, I want to play better, maybe there is some kind of incentive to play better. I'll use an example. I've got a really good friend in the Atlanta area who's a client. He works for a major car manufacturer who plays a lot of Pro-Ams on tour, the Wednesday Pro-Ams. And his goal was, I want to contribute, which I thought was a really, really healthy way of saying, hey, I want to play at my best, and I want to prep to play in these things because I got 3 or 4 other friends, maybe some clients going with me. And very much like the group from, say, Canada going to Myrtle Beach, or the group from Michigan going to Phoenix, or whatever the case may be, you get this expectation level up of what am I going to expect and what am I going to do and how am I going to get it done. You lost sight of why you're going. You're going because it should be fun, that you're sharing the time with some people and you're going to play some golf courses you wouldn't normally necessarily play. So one of the things I tell people is research the golf courses you're going to play. Try to look at aerial photography. With the internet the way it is now, there's no reason not to just get some prep work in, understanding the routing of the golf course. If you can get a 3D look at it with the hills and so forth, go right ahead. The more information you have, the better. If it's a golf course that doesn't suit your game, you're a fader of the ball and every hole's a turn to the left like NASCAR is, don't try to create that draw, because you're just not going to have enough time to do it unless you have the time commitment to do it. Can you go to your practice facility and simulate those holes and sort of envision how you're going to play that slight fade of yours around the left-hand corner? Is it taking a different club and putting it in a different position, or is it blowing it over the corner with a bigger club because you've got the ability to do it? I think if you strategize that way with the current skills you have, you end up playing better. And then the other thing is pacing yourself. The pacing that you create prior to going is going to be the pacing you create while you're there. So many times I saw in Myrtle Beach people just in a hurry. Same in Hilton Head. A lot of the times here during the season, it's like, come on, let's hurry up and play because we got a dinner to go to, or we have this to go to. Well, that kind of pacing started long before you ever showed up at the destination. It started prior to you ever getting there. So I would tell you, Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither is your golf swing, and neither is your golf trip. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moments that lead up to it, and put a realistic time plan together. Maybe pick out that one thing I was talking about before, that maybe this trip I want to see my putting improve, or I couldn't beat Joe last time. How do I beat Joe? Joe's weaknesses are this, so I'm not going to try to attack Joe's weaknesses, but I'm going to try to play the holes against Joe a little bit differently if we're in a match together. It's those kinds of things that can really keep the fun involved. You can stay competitive with it, yet it leads to realistic expectations versus ones that are going to be very difficult to live up to, especially if your sleep patterns are different, your meal patterns are different. I hear so many people say, man, I need a vacation for my vacation, especially after something like that. Just pace yourself. Enjoy yourself. That's what you're going for.
Well said. Brandon, how do we ramp up the fun factor on a trip like that? I know John's covered quite a bit here for us already, but anything you want to add to it?
I mean, I'm not sure what's left on the table, John, after that very eloquent explanation.
You'll find something.
Well, look, I think John hits on a great point in preparation, right? I'll give you a great example. I'm taking some guys to Scotland next year, and I've already told them that I'm going to pick a time this winter when it's raining, it's windy, and it's cold, and I'm calling them all, and we're going to go out and play our golf course in the rain, in the wind, in the cold, right? And I'm going to come up with some fun name, the Macon Scottish Open, or something goofy, right? Just to kind of simulate what it's going to be like. John is absolutely right. It's all about fun. I would tell you, if you're going to make golf part of your vacation, then make it part of your vacation. Get there early enough to where you're not rushed. Get there early enough to where you can experience the facility. I mean, traditionally, if you're in a destination and there's a golf course that you have figured is worth playing in that destination, then more than likely that golf course in and of itself is a destination, whether that means a fantastic practice facility or a great restaurant or, an incredible view or, a great sunset cocktail hour, whatever it is, enjoy it, right? And maybe instead of just sliding in the parking lot sideways 3 minutes before your tee time, slathering sunscreen on as you're walking to the first hole and trying to get it all done fast enough to get home and go to dinner at the wherever you're going, enjoy it. So if you're going to do golf on a vacation, then book your vacation with the golf. And what I mean is give yourself a good 6 hours to enjoy it, to experience it, right? I mean, I know there are plenty of golf courses in Myrtle Beach and in Hilton Head where, the bar and the scene out the back window when you're done and the cocktail is worth every penny you will spend and every moment you will spend drinking it. It's just awesome, right? And so make it part of your vacation. Prepare, dress right. If you're going to Scotland, bring a rain suit, right? The last thing you want to do is be, having paid $7,000 or $8,000 to go on this trip and be freezing with the wind blowing because you didn't bring the right stuff.
Rain suits are more expensive over there too.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think John's advice is golden. Do your research, do your planning. Do your planning on the golf course, do your planning, off the golf course. Just enjoy it. If you're going to make it part of your experience, then experience it and have fun.
Exactly. Well said. Alison, I know the boys didn't give you a lot left to add in there, but I'm sure you can squeeze something in.
Yeah, those are very, very great answers. I would start off by saying I don't even know what a golf vacation is. What is that? I think every time I've played golf, it's either been competition or it's been traveling for a purpose for that. So I'll have to look up the definition of a golf vacation to see what that's like. But many of the students that I do have will take sort of destination trips, and I think part of it is to really have their expectations in line. What's the purpose of their trip? More times than not, it's just to have fun. It's to relax.
Sure.
And so anything that they can do to make that a reality. So, both Brandon and John have made the comments, showing up prepared, making sure you have all the right equipment. And I think just really having your entire trip planned out. You can definitely be spontaneous and do some things last minute, but have some direction. Here's the golf courses that we're going to play. Get your golf professional to sort of set up some tee times for you at some great golf courses, and emphasize less the mechanics and the scoring outcome of the trip and focus more on the people that you're there with. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think a couple of points I just want to make that I know has already been made, but, scale back your expectations a little bit as far as your play is concerned. Your primary function on a golf trip, a golf vacation like that, whether you're going with a spouse or maybe a few other couples, or whether it's a guy's or a gal's vacation, go there first and foremost, as John pointed out there, is go and have fun. Don't get all hopped up and worried about whether you're hitting every shot perfectly or not. Go there and have fun. As everybody pointed out, do your research first and sort of get the lay of the land, if you will, and allow yourself plenty of time to enjoy the experience, especially the golf aspect of it. Whether you go to Myrtle Beach, Arizona, Florida, or even out to California, if you're planning a trip out that way and you want to play some new, interesting golf courses, set it up do some preparation, and first and foremost, go out and have fun, and worry about working on your golf game when you come home after the vacation. Get together with your coach. Alison and gentlemen, as always, you guys did a great job. We've got to wrap it up now. I'm out of time here, unfortunately, for Coach's Corner, but interesting discussion, some good viewpoints on the questions. I had a few more questions left, but as I said, I'm out of time. But very quickly, I'm going to go, Alison, I'm going to give you the first option. Brandon, and then John, I'll let you wrap it up. How can the folks reach out to you if they want or interested in getting in touch with you?
Anyone can visit my website, AlisonCurtGolf.com, and that's sort of like the main hub for any way to get in touch with me, whether it's through email, phone. I have a Facebook business page. I've got a Twitter account. I have some YouTube videos as well in terms of if you're looking for a couple of tips, feel free to watch some of those videos, and also any sort of other media that I'm in where I'm offering tips. I usually post stuff like that as well on that website, so Golf Tips Magazine, or you can check out my golf channel segments as well, so AlisonCurtGolf.com.
Very good. Brandon, what about yourself? How can the folks get in touch with you and reach out if they're interested?
Yeah, just like Alison, the website would be the best place. It's just my last name. It's a little funny. It's STOOKSBURY, StooksburyGolf.com. And everything I have, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, it's all under Stooksbury Golf. And so, I do a little bit on all that stuff. And so please feel free to reach out, follow, tweet, like, whatever those adjectives are. I would love to hear from you, anytime.
Sounds good. And John, last but not least.
Thanks again for the honor of being on with you, Ted, Alison, Brennan. My pleasure, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. Anybody can reach me very similar to the other two, johnhughesgolf.com. That's the main hub. You can also find me at Falcons Fire Golf Club in the Kissimmee area of the Orlando, Florida general location. Look for some changes in my website within the next 10 days or so, and look for some new programs going into the fall if you're heading this way.
Sounds good. Guys, thank you very much. As always, I enjoyed our discussion tonight, and I hope that the audience out there was able to pick up some good tips. And just one final thought on those of you planning maybe a fall vacation to some of the destinations we talked about. Do your homework. Figure out where you're going to go once you've got a place established, and do as Brandon suggested. Maybe try to emulate the situation, the circumstance, if you can, back here at home before you head over to better prepare, whether you're going overseas or whether you're going maybe to a warmer climate or something. Try to emulate the circumstances best you can, and do your homework a little bit. But again, first and foremost, go and have fun. Alison, John, and Brandon, thank you very much again for being on Coach's Corner. I look forward to having you guys back next time.
Thank you, Ed.
All right. Have a great week.
You too.
Okay, that was my great panelists, John Hughes, Alison Curdt, and Brandon Stooksbury on the Coach's Corner panel here, first up on Golf Talk Live. And now we're going to make way for a gentleman who has been a long time coming in the mix. We've been working on this for probably over the last month and a half to get him up and running on the show here. I'm very excited to have him. His name is Mike Maher. He's the Director of Education of the Evans Scholars Foundation. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Evans Scholars Foundation and also the Western Golf Association as well. We'll put that all together here. Mike Maher, as I said, has been with the organization for more than 10 years. Mike was once an Evans Scholar at Marquette University himself, and has a passion for helping young caddies receive full housing and tuition scholarships to college. In his role as Director of Education, Mike oversees the development of the overall Evans Scholars Foundation. He's helped students overcome the barriers of becoming caddies, thus increasing the amount of Evans Scholars applicants each and every year. Prior to this, Mike served as the Caddy and Scholarship Manager, where he assisted in leading the Foundation's caddy programs as well as the prestigious Chick Evans Scholarship. And just a little bit about the Evans Scholarship Foundation itself. It was established in 1930 by the Western Golf Association and famed amateur golfer Charles Chick Evans Jr. The Evans Scholarship Foundation provides full housing and tuition scholarships, as I mentioned, to deserving caddies across the country. The Evans Scholars Program is funded by contributions from more than over 28,000 Evans Scholars Par Club members, as well as proceeds from the BMW Championship. Since the program's inception in 1930, more than 10,000 caddies nationwide have graduated as Evans Scholars. So it sounds like a great program. And then I'm just going to just sort of gloss over a little bit too as well about the Western Golf Association. It was founded in 1899 to serve golfing interests in the growing Midwest. The WGA now has more than 400 member clubs. The WGA conducts 2 prestigious amateur championships, the Western Amateur and the Western Junior, as well as the BMW Championship, which I've already mentioned. And it's the third of 4 PGA Tour FedExCup Playoff events. The WGA promotes the use of caddies and supports the Evans Scholars Foundation, which awards college scholarships to caddies with limited financial means. The WGA is a driving force in the game and has respected charitable cause for thousands of supporters and distinguished leaders in the nation's golfing community. And without further hesitation, let me welcome my very special guest, Mike Maher. Good evening, Mike, and welcome to Golf Talk. Welcome to Golf Talk Live. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor and my pleasure. Let me just first say I want to give just a very quick shout out before we get going into our conversation to Mallory Sturgeon, who was instrumental in helping arrange getting you on the show and that. So thank you, Mallory. If you happen to be listening, I appreciate very much all your efforts in communicating between the two of us and getting things set up. So I want a special thank you to her as well. Mike, I just want to talk first before we get into a little bit about the Scholars Foundation and also the WGA a little bit. I want to just to maybe cap over a little bit more about yourself. Tell us about your background. Obviously, as I mentioned, you were a caddy yourself. Give us an idea of what you were doing up to that point and what sort of led you into an interest in becoming a caddy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up on the south side of Chicago, so being the youngest of 7 children, I had the opportunity to watch my older siblings caddy at Beverly. So by the time I got to me, it was less of a choice and more of a direct path, and I was excited for the opportunity. So had an opportunity to caddy at Beverly Country Club for in total 9 years, but throughout that process and throughout high school, I actually utilized that opportunity to apply for the Evans Scholarship, and I was very, very fortunate to be awarded to Marquette University and caddied throughout the latter part of grade school, throughout high school, and then throughout college as well. And then after I graduated from Marquette, shortly after I graduated, an opportunity presented itself with the Western Golf Association on staff. So I very much jumped at the opportunity and, again, feel very, very fortunate to be involved with that. So, goes without saying, but I'm very biased when it comes to the Western Golf Association and the Scholars Foundation. Without it, I'd be uneducated, unemployed, and my wife is actually an Evans Scholar alum as well, so I probably won't be married either. So I'm very biased.
Well, a great plug for not only your wife but also for the WGA as well, and well said. Let's talk about first off for a lot of the folks. Obviously, most of the people tuning into the show, of course, are either avid golfers and many professionals also tune into the program as well. But for those maybe a handful or two out there that don't really understand what a caddy is and what the function is, it's not just about carrying the bag, right? So let's talk a little bit more detail. What is the function, if you will, of a caddy? Absolutely.
I think Chick Evans probably said it best. A caddy is really kind of the lifeblood of the game of golf. It's golf is designed to be played, with a caddy, and it's a walking sport. But there's a reason why every time you turn on the TV to watch a PGA event, to a certain degree, it is somewhat of a team sport, and that
right.
There's a reason behind that. So the last thing, caddies very much aren't just bag carriers. Obviously assisting with yardage and equipment management, not only cleaning but managing the equipment throughout the round of golf. But sometimes depending on their ability and the relationship with the golfer themselves, especially some club caddies that will caddy for a a particular golfer more than a couple of times, you start to build a real relationship with them. So sometimes they're strictly caddies, sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're therapists. Sometimes they'll talk you off the edge and whatnot. So they do play a critical role in really enhancing the game. Obviously, if you look at the top golf courses really in the country, there's a reason why the vast majority of them have a caddy program, because they add so much value to that. If I'm a member at a club and I want to bring 3 guests to come play, we're gonna show up and maybe have lunch, hit some balls, play a round of golf, maybe have dinner afterwards, and there's a very strong possibility that the individual who's going to play the most significant play, the biggest role in the day for any golfer, whether it's a member, guest, or otherwise, it's not necessarily the head golf professional or the general manager. And no offense to any of them, but they're obviously very good at their crafts. But the individual is going to be spending 4.5 hours on that bag is
right.
A caddy.
Right. And you touched on something that's really kind of interesting, and I just want to, maybe we can expand a little bit about that. You mentioned about some of the, relationships with some of the players. I can think of a number, Phil Mickelson comes to mind. Bones was his caddy has been his caddy for many, many years. And a real relationship develops, not just a relationship on the golf course, but obviously off the golf course. But that individual, again, doesn't just, carry the bag and clean the clubs and walk off yardage. They're a confidant out in the golf course for them. They, talk them off the ledge from time to time. They, reassure them, that they're making the decision that they've made. Ultimately, the player's going to make the decision how he or she is going to maybe execute
Absolutely.
the shot or play a specific hole. But it's good to have a sounding board, and that's really another role that the caddies play. So how how do you develop as a caddy? How do you develop that sort of instinct, if you will? Obviously, you've got specific training. Talk about some of the training that you would receive as a caddy through the program that you're referring to.
Sure, absolutely. So, the Western Golf Association, we're, as you mentioned, advocates for caddies and, especially junior caddies, creating opportunities for young people. So in order to do that, we actually offer a caddy manual, a caddy training video, as well as a caddy exam for free on our website, just for anyone who's interested, just to kind of, many young people who start off as caddies don't necessarily have golfing background. So tries to cover everything from etiquette to, actual technique and whatnot. So it's you can absolutely achieve some classroom style caddy training, but the caddy programs that we're affiliated with around the country, many of them are going to actually offer on-course caddy training as well. We offer, somewhat separate to this particular conversation, the Caddy Academy that we run. We will provide classroom style and extensive on-course caddy training as well for the participants, just to make sure that they, a lot of times a young person, the first time they step on a golf course sometimes is during caddy training. So we want to make sure that they build as much confidence in their ability, and that confidence will continue to increase throughout the course of time and play, an important role with their relationship with golfers moving forward.
Yeah, and that's so true. Especially for a lot of the juniors, I'm sure it's very daunting and a little even intimidating at first getting out on the golf course, especially if they've never been out on one before. And obviously you're going to provide, a substantial amount of training through the programs to help them through that transition. Let's talk about the Evans Scholars Foundation itself. Can anyone apply for that? How does the process work, or are there certain requirements, and what would they be?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Evans Scholarship itself as you mentioned, started in 1930 with 2 Evans Scholars were awarded to Northwestern University. Last year, let's fast forward to last year, there were we awarded 260 new recipients, which means this fall we're actually going to, really within the next week or two, when most students are moving back, we'll have 935 Evans Scholars in school across the country on full tuition and housing scholarships. The process itself, the application recently went live on August 1st, and you can apply as a senior in high school, as the vast majority of our applicants are seniors in high school, and you can also apply for a 3-year scholarship if you're a freshman in college. However, the requirements themselves, the first thing that the committee is going to evaluate is the caddy record. So we require minimum 2 years of caddying. Our average is 4 years for those who were awarded last year. So it is competitive. It is very much a caddy scholarship. The second thing, the second requirement would be excellent academics. So look at the entire high school transcript. We look at standardized test scores, and then evaluations that are completed by both the club, typically the caddy manager, as well as their high school guidance counselor, to cover kind of the evaluations from their caddying and high school academic careers. And then the third requirement would be demonstrated financial need. We understand everyone has need, especially when it comes to the rising cost of college tuition. We look at the degree of need, how it compares to our standards, as well as how it compares to this particular year's applicant pool. So we look at all the family financial information and look at any extenuating circumstances as well. And then the final criteria would be we look for individuals of outstanding character and leadership. So we're looking at what they do, leaders both in and outside the classroom. So looking for, whether it's National Honor Society or Eagle Scouts or volunteers or church ministries, whatever it might be. So we really look at, well-rounded individuals who are excelling in multiple facets.
Very good. Before I move on to the next, so I guess, sort of phase of this, I want to ask you specifically, as far as the colleges are concerned, are there specific colleges that that the WGA looks at for participation? Are there specific ones that, or can the students belong or be attending or looking to attend, essentially any college in the nation?
Sure.
Or are there certain restrictions there as well?
That's a great question. We actually have restrictions on to where the Evans Scholarship is applicable, and the reason for that is we own and operate 15 different chapter houses around the country. So these are Evans Scholarship homes where Evans Scholars live in freshman through senior year. So it's a pretty unique situation where it's the only house on most campuses where a freshman would live with a junior or senior, and there's a lot of benefits to having exposure to upperclassmen, especially those who may be in the same field of study, and kind of helping determine class loads and academic directions that you want to take. One of the things that is, perhaps important to mention here is many of our Evans Scholars are first-generation college students. So I can speak firsthand. My parents, although very, very smart and incredibly hardworking, they did not have the opportunity. They're Irish immigrants, so they did not have the opportunity to go to college stateside. And to a certain degree, entering college campus for the first time is pretty daunting for anyone. But if you don't have some of that exposure, it can be having a soundboard of upperclassmen who can help you, give you a tour of campus, to where you should buy your books, to this is how you apply for various programs or whatever it might be, and really getting new Evans Scholars acclimated to not only the Evans Scholarship House, but really campus and college life. So to answer your question is, the scholarship is not applicable to every university. There's certain universities, and a lot of it depends on which state you live in. But we have several national universities that would include, Northwestern, Notre Dame, Miami, Ohio, and then University of Oregon, as well as now Kansas is a new partner for us. We're going back to Kansas after a 30-year, we'll call it a sabbatical. But we're excited to be heading back to Lawrence this fall.
Fantastic, and obviously I'm assuming that part of the WGA's mission and as well as the foundation itself are going to look at opportunities to continue to expand that network. Is that something that's in the mix as well for future?
That is correct. So we have a pretty strong footprint in the Midwest. We have we do have Evans Scholars at the University of Oregon. We just opened our house this fall. They're going to be moving in the next week. In Eugene, so we're excited about that. As far east as we go as of right now would be we have scholars living in community at Penn State. However, we are looking to partner with universities in the east as well to kind of, but that's part of the growth plan for the Evans Scholars. As I mentioned, we have 935 this fall. Our goal, and we're on task to, in a trajectory to get there, is to have 1,000 Evans Scholars in school by the year 2020. So
wow.
With that comes more partner universities as well as, the goal is not to leave any caddy behind.
Very good. And obviously, as you said, you're well on your way to achieving that goal. I want to talk about the WGA for a second, specifically. As I mentioned the earlier opening notes, I mentioned that there is a number of a couple of amateur championships as well as participation through the BMW Championship. So I want to talk about the amateur championships first. What's the purpose of the championships? What's the involvement of the WGA? And it's how is it something for? Obviously, I know what the BMW is, but let's talk about first the amateur championships, the Western Amateur and the Western Junior. Explain to me what the purpose of these two championships for. And is it open to anybody, or is it for the caddies that are participating, or what's the function of the two tournaments?
No, great question. The functions of the championships themselves is really to promote, golf at every level for us. So, the junior championship this year we held our 99th Western Junior up at Red Run Golf Club in Royal Oak, and this is, considered a very prestigious junior event. And it's really kind of the who's who in junior golf. So it's the oldest national junior championship, which is absolutely fantastic. But this is incredibly competitive. Not too many. This is very much a national draw as well as an international draw to the competitors in this. So this is more so to direct the WGA, wants to make sure that we're fostering the game of golf as well, and offering championship-style tournaments for competitive golfers. So the junior and the AM is going to be more so directed for truly competitive golfers at those two levels. The Western AM had a great week last week at Knollwood Club in Lake Forest. That is, some have referred to the Western Am as kind of the masters of amateur golf, especially stateside. So it is, again, if you look at those two trophies of the Western Junior and the Western Amateur, you'll see, the stars of today, tomorrow, and yesterday. So we're very, very proud of, the efforts of the tournament team and as well as the host sites to make those events as special as they are.
Do they since you mentioned host sites, are they held at the same locations each year, or do they move around?
They do move around. So this year, the Western Am was at Knollwood, and the Junior was at Red Run. They do rotate every year.
Oh, okay, cool. Now, let's talk a little bit about the relationship of the WGA and the BMW Championship. How did that come about? How long has that sort of relationship been evolved? And how did it evolve into what it currently is now?
Sure. The BMW Championship is kind of the new version of the Western Open, which for many Chicagoans, it was a true treat to go out and there's many people that are we're affiliated with that have caddied in Western Opens. This is one of the last PGA tournaments that local caddies actually caddied in it. So it's a great tie. But again, you see some of golf legends, have won the J.K. Wadley Trophy, which continued not only from the Western Open but carried on to the BMW Championship. So you're talking the Ben Hogans, the Arnold Palmers, Jack Nicklaus's, and Tigers, etc. have won that event as well as Rory. Last year we've had some great spins. And we're very blessed and fortunate with that. But really, the BMW Championship converted over, especially with the FedExCup. So now it plays as the number 3 of 4 PGA playoff events. So it's the top 70 golfers in terms of FedExCup points. So the field is always fantastic. One of the benefits of the tournament itself is there is no cut. So if you're looking to if you're coming out to the BMW Championship, you want to follow a particular player, you can guarantee that you're going to see them Thursday through Sunday. So it is fairly unique in that perspective. We're excited. This year we got a great site at Crooked Stick Golf Club, which will be heading back into Carmel, Indiana, in just a month from now. And obviously we're gearing up for that. But all the proceeds from the BMW Championship go to help offset the cost of tuition for the Evans Scholars.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. Mike, let me ask you. Now that we've sort of established the process, if you will, of applying for the scholarship and getting into the foundation and that. Let's walk through a little bit of what some things that one could expect to learn going through your program, and how long is the program itself?
Okay. Are you saying the Evans Scholarship specifically,
yes.
or are you referring to the Caddy Academy? Okay.
The Caddy Academy.
Okay. The Caddy Academy is a little bit different. So the Caddy Academy is actually a program that we just concluded our 5th summer of the Caddy Academy, and really the origin from that is we started 5 years ago because looking at our organization, as I mentioned, we're strong advocates for caddies. So, but looking at our program and some of our applicant pool, we were noticing a couple of things, and we wanted to knock down barriers of entry for caddies. So the number one barrier is really geography. Well over half the country does not have access to a caddy program. So geography is something that especially if you looked at and you mentioned it kind of earlier in the segment today with the Coach's Corner. If you're down in Florida right now, it's a tough season. During all those schools out of session, it's not exactly the ideal caddy season.
No.
So if you look at where many of our affiliated caddy programs are, they're really somewhat in the northern half of the country for the most part, and that mirrors the golf season, aligns with the school year. So that's kind of the reason behind that. So even with that being said, geography is still certainly number one barrier. The second one is really gender. So we estimate less than 5% of caddies in the country are girls, young women, or women. So we want to create an opportunity for young women who academically are excelling, financially they're in some need, geographically they cannot get to a caddy program. So we created the Caddy Academy 5 years ago, and we started off as a pilot program with 12 girls, and fast forward to this year we had 80 young women in the program, and caddying at 12 different clubs in Chicago's North Shore. So it is a residential program, so they actually commit to the 7 weeks, and they actually, many of them are leaving, whether it's Southern California, Atlanta, Philadelphia, D.C., Baltimore, just outside of Detroit, Indianapolis, etc., and they're coming to commit to spending 7 weeks with us during their summer. Typically, they caddy 6 days a week at an assigned club, and we provide them breakfast in the morning. They get shuttled to their clubs by counselors, all of which are women Evans Scholars, some of which have actually graduated now from the Caddy Academy. So we have kind of an in-house leadership spiral effect, which is, something that's we're very, very proud of. And then they caddy throughout the day. They get picked up in the afternoon by the counselors. They're brought home, and then they're provided dinner at Woodlands Academy, which is where we house the program, which is an all-girls boarding school in Lake Forest, which is centrally located to all the clubs that they're caddying at. So they throughout the in the evenings we also do a lot of off-course programming. So we do offer an in-house standardized test prep class for those who are going to be juniors and seniors. So we'll be taking standardized tests within the next school year. So we want to make sure that we're helping them out as much as possible. We also have guest speakers, typically about one a week, and all of our guest speakers are women, and they will discuss topics ranging from personal finance, personal and professional development. We had a health and nutritionist coach come in and talk to us about healthy lifestyles. And then we also do several field trips. So we've actually had the opportunity to take the girls to professional baseball game. We've gone to watch the White Sox a couple of times, once every summer. We've also provided them with golf lessons. Most of them, they've never stepped on a golf course prior to this program. Many of them have not been on a college campus. Some of them, their first flight was the day that they arrived in the Caddy Academy.
Wow! So
it's a lot of firsts. And then, one of the things that we want to make sure that we do is expose them to the game of golf, and they get to caddy in some of the Chicago's finest caddy programs and golf clubs and country clubs. So they're getting a lot of, they work in a really safe, secure, and healthy environment, exposed to some great role models. But a lot of times they don't necessarily get to play all that much, so we actually provide them with golf lessons, and they find a newfound appreciation for how difficult golf is. So their appreciation for their golfers after that is typically elevates as well.
Fantastic. Mike, let me ask you, once an applicant's gone through the process, they've received the scholarship funding and so forth, and have now been part of the Caddy program, does your organization offer any sort of assistance in placement? Like, for instance, obviously students that go through various colleges and that sometimes will have placement agencies or things that will work with them to help them in the particular field of interest. Do you offer something like that, or do you have a way of guiding them into sort of the next phase of their caddying life if they want to maybe are interested in caddying on tour? Do you have an opportunity to work with maybe some of the tours to get them out there and introduce them to players and things like that? How does that work?
Yeah, so in terms of, the Evans Scholarship, we view it as kind of a lifelong program. It's very much goes well beyond the 4 years of college. We actually have a leadership council who are made up of many alums and some non-Evans Scholar alums who are, young but, industry leaders, whether it's in, business, healthcare, et cetera. And we'll actually line up current Evans Scholars with someone that's in their industry, just to talk about, if you're thinking about banking, you want to consider this, or if you're thinking about consulting, you may want to consider this, or whatever it might be. So you have kind of an advocate and a mentor before you graduate, so you can start lining up job interviews. You can kind of dial in your resume, go over interview techniques, et cetera, and really kind of everything from kind of reviewing your LinkedIn profile to, I understand you're really interested in, the ABC Incorporated. I actually have a friend who's over there, so I'd be happy to introduce you. So we do try to line them up with careers and jobs after college. In terms of caddying on tour, we don't have too many Evans Scholars caddying on tour. We do, to a certain degree, we kind of view caddying as somewhat of a stepping stone job, and we understand how tight that market is for tour caddies. Some of them have been doing that for several decades, but we do absolutely honor caddies. We actually now administer the Caddy Hall of Fame, which is so we actually inducted the Murray brothers last year at the BMW Championship, right after the Pro-Am round. So that was exciting. We've got several people, including obviously our very own Chick Evans, who've been honored into that program.
Fantastic. I guess what's interesting about this is, for a long time, we watch, and again, I'm going to refer to the tours, of course, the LPGA and the PGA. We often see the caddies, and I guess here, as more and more of them have become better known to the golfing community. Again, I mentioned Bones, who is, of course, Phil Mickelson's caddy. And then, of course, Lee Trevino, his caddy, unfortunately, is no longer with us. But, there was always such a close relationship. Freddie Couples, another player. I mean, obviously all the tour players, many of them have their own caddies that they use on a regular basis. Some of them, especially some of the junior golfers to the tour, may rotate that around depending on where they're playing. And as time goes on, they form those relationships. Do you see, as things progress with your organization, more and more opportunities for some of the individuals that have gone through your program, especially the women, having more and more opportunities, not just caddying throughout the various clubs that you work with, but maybe opening up doors down the road, getting out on tour and that, so that some of them can get access that way? Is there a formula, if you will, that you're working on maybe for future to open those doors?
It's funny you bring that. They didn't necessarily caddy in the event, but since the International Crown was actually in town this summer, we had the opportunity to take the girls from the Caddy Academy and kind of get a behind-the-scenes look at an LPGA event. We got kind of a tour of the media center, as well as got to meet some of the players, and it definitely piqued an interest in terms of creating a pathway and kind of, creating blazing a trail for some of the women in our program to caddy on tour. That hasn't necessarily been something that's really been one of our focuses as of right now. Exposing them to golf and really to industry leaders, whether they're in the golf industry or otherwise. That's really kind of been the focal point for us as of late.
Right. Well, and again, it's essentially what you're doing is you're opening a door for them and creating opportunities, and obviously how far they go is going to be obviously up to them. But no, I think it's a great program. It was very interesting. When you look at how golf is traditionally played now, it's kind of in the mainstream. It has gotten away with obviously exceptions of what you're dealing with. Everybody's jumping in a golf cart and that, and it's really a shame because, I think that there's, in my opinion, a much better enjoyment. I'll give you a good example. As we talked about earlier, the caddies provide valuable information for many of the players, and I think many amateurs would benefit from playing courses that offer a caddy for a number of reasons. First off, it's a sort of a camaraderie that can be developed over, as you said, 4 or 5 hours, depending on how long they're playing. But also, caddies have a great insight to the course itself. I mean, they're familiar with the course, especially if somebody's coming to play a course that they've never played before. So there's a lot of opportunities. And certainly, you can get that. You can get that information, I know, from the Club Pro and things like that. But again, it's very limited, or yardage books and things like that. But again, you're developing an opportunity really. I would love to see more and more of that, and I hope that your organization continues to grow, and as it seems like it is, and maybe we can get back to more of that type of format in some of these other courses across the nation.
And we're firm believers, carts and caddies can coexist.
Sure.
but when it comes to an experience, walking with, one of the coolest things that you can see is looking down a fairway and seeing 4 golfers with 4 caddies walking. I'm biased, but that's about as good as it gets. One of the things that shouldn't be downplayed is when it comes to taking a caddy, it is it's 4 hours to have them truly impact your round. Whether it's a blind shot or this putt is going to have a tendency to go right to left or just local knowledge. But it is an absolute opportunity for golfers to really take on. Although it's a short window, but that 4 hours can play a critical role for a young person, especially just learning a little bit more about what someone does for a living, or getting some advice about maybe they graduated from university that they're considering or whatever it might be. It's very much a two-way street.
We're always looking, and as some of my colleagues that were on earlier tonight on the Coach's Corner panel, one of the reasons why I started that for the show a few years ago was really to bring a number of like-minded people together. And we don't just talk about fixing the golf swing, or we don't just talk about some of the things going on in the industry. We're really looking for ways to grow the game, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to get into. Golf is one of the few games left that really is not, other than at certain collegiate level and obviously high school, is one of the few sports that really is not deeply embedded in the school system. I mean, we've got football, we've got basketball, many of the other sports out there, and I would really like to see an opportunity to get golf into sort of the general school, even the public school system in a greater way. Do you think there's an opportunity that maybe your organization, whether WGA or others, that maybe would be a great way to introduce kids to golf, through exposure, maybe doing, I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for, but where maybe representatives from your organization and also maybe some of the students that have gone through the program could maybe visit local schools and just talk to them about. Do you do that now? Is that something you're currently doing, or is that something that maybe in the future you might?
Yeah, it's actually, so I know that the first tee, especially in the Chicago area, I can speak of. They've gone into some of the schools to kind of take over a recess or whatever it might be to really kind of introduce the game of golf to in a fun and kind of safe, embarrassment-free environment.
Right.
But one of the things I heard it a couple of times this year from the Caddy Academy is some of the girls actually come into our program and they will tell us, and this is a quote, they thought golf wasn't necessarily a real sport. It was something that it was basically manufactured by Hollywood just for movies.
Right.
So they, and then those same individuals will go on and pick up golf as a caddy, and then trying to hone in their game a little bit. And we have a couple girls through the Caddy Academy who actually now play on their high school teams. And they were not introduced to the game of golf prior to, our 7-week summer program.
I could see, sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
I think, in terms of introducing, we feel that introducing individuals to the game of golf, one of the best routes, certainly, if you're a country club member, great. Junior golf programs there are absolutely fantastic. That's probably one of the, how do you create lifetime golfers? That might be one of the top ways right there. But a lot of lifetime golfers also come from the other side of the bag as well, start off as caddies and kind of get an appreciation for the game, and then kind of maybe utilize some, Monday caddy rounds or whatever it might be that's made available for them. So we try to develop golfers really from the other side of the golf bag. Right.
Yeah, I guess the thought that I was having was that, I could see really an opportunity, again, with the WGA or, could really kind of create an opportunity with the school systems and maybe start it out in the Chicago area. I mean, obviously, I know First Tee does many things, and there's many other junior programs that are currently trying to tap into the school system. But, you know, I could see really a lot of people don't understand, as I mentioned earlier, maybe exactly what a caddy does. I could see, you know, maybe an opportunity where inviting students from some of the local schools out to be a caddy, you know, in the life of a caddy or something for a day, and invite them out and show them exactly what's involved, and just, you know, sort of start and pique that interest in golf in general, but doing it through, as you said, from the other side of the bag. I don't know whether that's something that would be feasible or not, but I don't know. I think it would be kind of cool. I think if your organization was to attend maybe some of the schools and invite some of the students out there just to sort of plant that seed, if you will, I think you might be surprised at how many would maybe gravitate to your programs.
Yeah,
that maybe would have never thought, you know what I'm saying, like that maybe have never been exposed to golf, maybe don't really understand. They see, as you said, they see what's in Hollywood puts out, or they see what's on the PGA or LPGA tours, but they don't really see it from the other side of the bag, as you pointed out. So I don't know, it might be something to consider.
Absolutely.
But so obviously you went through the program, and I think you mentioned your wife as well. What were some of the things that you took away from the program that maybe some memories that you have from going through the caddy program itself? And obviously, as you mentioned, you were an Evans Scholar graduate.
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt, I have a twin brother who, being able to, our first jobs were caddies. So having the opportunity to go spend a summer working with alongside my twin, and then making, some of our lifelong friends through the caddy yard. And there's some life experiences that you'll, are best learned in the caddy yard. But then, there's an opportunity to, you get a new boss every day. So you get the opportunity to interact with, a lot of different people and a lot of different types of people throughout your time as a caddy. So being able to manage different personality types, different skill sets of golfers, and making sure that you're doing your best to really kind of identify what they're looking for. Maybe it's just a after work, round of golf that they're just looking to really kind of let their hair down and have fun a little bit, or it could be the club championship, and they're looking to bring home some hardware that they're looking for any help that they can give. So it was cool to be able to play a role in a job where although you're working hard, you're not necessarily the focal point of.
Right.
I think that's important, especially growing up and having the opportunity to learn some humility, especially early on in life, is critical.
Yeah.
But then fast forward again, beyond fortunate to have been awarded the Evans Scholarship, and again, some of my lifelong friends, aside from, my wife, coming from the Marquette Evans Scholarship House, I was very, very fortunate, and still fortunate to be able to call those individuals friends, and I've benefited from their experiences. Like I said, I didn't necessarily have, there's a lot of us were going through similar experiences, being away from home for the first time or whatever it might be, and kind of having that network and that kind of security blanket to kind of lean on, especially in your first semester or first year in college, was kind of critical.
Yeah, it's certainly scary for a lot of kids, and we've geared up for another season. For many of the kids gone away now for college. Some of them are not starting for another week or so, depending on where they are in the country. But it certainly can be very daunting, and it's nice to have sort of a shared camaraderie, if you will. And it sounds like you guys have got a great working with a great organization and for a great cause. Michael, I want to just thank you very much for coming on tonight. Again, I appreciate you doing so, and this is really an area that I haven't really talked a lot about on the show as of yet. We've talked about many things from the instructional side, and I've had a number of very highly talented entrepreneurs in the golf industry come on, but we really haven't had anybody from this area. So I really appreciate coming on tonight and talking a little bit about your caddy program and about the Evans Scholars Foundation. And obviously the Western Golf Association. I appreciate your time very much.
Ted, this is a treat, Ted. Thank you very much, and thanks for what you're doing. And honestly, anytime. And certainly appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I'll tell you what I'd like to do, and I know we didn't get an opportunity to do it this time, but I'd like to maybe have you come back again and maybe get some of the folks that have gone through the program, and maybe even some of the ones that are currently going through the program, and maybe invite them to come on as well for a little bit of a discussion and share some of their thoughts and some of their experiences that they've had. So we'll set that up for a little bit down the road. Maybe we'll work that into the new year, but I would definitely love to do that. And you've got a home here, so you're welcome to come back anytime and share it.
Thank you very much.
And as new things unfold with your organization, just reach out to me, and I'll do what I can to help spread the word. Which reminds me, how can those that are interested, maybe learning more? You mentioned earlier a website. What's the website link, and where can they go to learn more about the Evans Scholars Foundation and also the Western Golf Association?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is WGAESF.org. So like Western Golf Association, Evans Scholars Foundation.org. So all of our information pertaining our championships, our scholarship, as well as the Caddy Academy, caddy training materials, all of that is located right at that website. So happy to, obviously our contact information is there as well, so if anyone has any questions.
Perfect. Again, Mike, thank you very much for taking the time to join me this evening. I know it's not always easy after you finish a hard day of work to have to come and chat for an hour, but it's a great game and we enjoy it very much, and I enjoy doing what I'm doing as well. So, and it's a pleasure and honor to talk with some great guests like yourself.
Excellent. Happy to do it. Thank you so much. Truly an honor.
All right. Thank you, Mike, and have a great weekend, and I look forward to having you join me again on Golf Talk Live.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, that was my very special guest. As we wrap up here for another evening, Mike Maher, the Director of Education for the Western Golf Association's Evans Scholars Foundation. And very interesting program, and hope we covered a little bit tonight. And as he mentioned, you can visit their website, which is WGAESF.org. You can learn more information there. So that, again, the website link is www.wgaesf.org. You can learn more about both the Evans Scholars Foundation and, of course, the Western Golf Association. I want to thank again my Coach's Corner panel earlier tonight, John Hughes, Alison Curdt, and Brandon Stooksbury. I know we had a fourth plan. Michael Wheeler, unfortunately, had something come up last minute that he had to cancel out, but we'll get him on the next time. But I want to thank those guys for coming on, and for Alison as well for coming on and sharing some great insight. And I hope you guys learned something here as well on the program. So thanks for pitching in on the Coach's Corner tonight. And I will be back here next Thursday with a brand new panel and a brand new guest for the second half right here on Golf Talk Live. So make sure you tune in. Go to www.blogtalkradio.com and type up in the search key, you can type in Golf Talk Live, and that will bring you to the main page. And for those of you that weren't able to listen to the broadcast tonight live, if you go to www.blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live is the full link. You can scroll down to the on-demand section, and you can listen to any of the previously aired programs, including tonight. They're all auto-recorded, so you can go and listen to them when it's convenient for you and hear some great discussion and some great guests as well. And I want to take this opportunity, as I always try to do, and sometimes I remiss my duties here. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of my listeners worldwide for faithfully tuning in each week to Golf Talk Live. I really sincerely mean this from the bottom of my heart. I have a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches, teaching professionals, authors, and entrepreneurs stop by, and now a great education program, a caddy program as well. So I've had that on the show as well, and we're going to keep moving the needle forward. And I like the fact that they're reaching out to the opposite sex, to the women as well, and getting them involved in and doing some great work with the juniors as well. So kudos to the Western Golf Association and the Evans Scholars Foundation as well for all their great work and growing this game. But I want to thank the listeners particularly for tuning in each and every week and helping to make Golf Talk Alive a first-class show. I also want to thank some of the sponsors and supporters of my program. In addition to all the listeners, Mr. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. Thank you, Jonathan, for tuning in and for pitching out here as well. If you're interested in obtaining one of Jonathan's guide, he has a great publication. It's called South Coast Golf Guide. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com. And you can request a copy of that guide if you're not currently in the southeastern part of the United States. You can request, and Jonathan will be more than happy to send you a copy. Or if you're planning on a trip, as we talked about earlier in Coach's Corner, if you're planning on taking a trip down here in the southeast and you want to get a copy of the guide for purposes of checking out some of the great golf courses literally from Texas all the way across here to Florida, has a great list of some courses there that you can play. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com. Meredith Kirk, of course, from Meredith Kirk Golf and Endless Golf of Myrtle Beach magazine. She's part of that magazine as well, and she was the 2014 Mrs. South Carolina winner as well. She's a great LPGA professional instructor out from the Myrtle Beach area, and she's going to be joining me here the last Thursday of the month. I believe it's the 25th of this month. She's going to be coming on and talking about a new book that she's coming out with literally just weeks ahead. So make sure you tune in for that as well. Meredith, thank you for all of your continued support, and I look forward to our time together a little bit later in the month. Also, Nikki and Tiffany Litherland, thank you for always helping to spread the word. And I know I've mentioned this many times in previous shows. I am going to get Nikki on the show. It's just been very, very tough to coordinate our schedules. Now he's a very, very busy man, and his lovely wife Tiffany as well. Thank you for all of your continued support of the program and spreading the word. Mr. Bernie Pinder from Ontic Golf. Go to onticgolf.com. Great line of customized putters. Bernie, of course, is the founder and owner of Ontic Golf. Thank you for all of your continued support as well. Mr. Sean Kelly, owner of LinkedGolfers.com. Linked Golfers, of course, is the largest golf group on LinkedIn, which is a huge business social media site. Linked Golfers is his baby, if you will. He started that on LinkedIn, and brought that out to a different social media platform as well, so that the folks can get a little more personal with some of the people that part of that group. And thank you, Sean, for all of your continued support. And of course, my good friend, last but not least, Mr. Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland. Thank you for faithfully tuning in and helping to spread the word as well. And on that note, I want to thank again everybody for tuning into the show. I look forward to seeing you each and every week here on Golf Talk Live. So I will see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody. Have a great weekend.